So just to give you a little bit of history and context, about a year and a half ago, maybe a year and a few months ago, Chief Jolly approached the corporate leadership team and myself with a decision package for 2 additional fire service technician positions. And at the time, his rationale primarily was the need was there because of the low paid-on-call firefighter turnout during the day. However, because that was just a sort of an early indication and there hadn't been a lot of data tracked at that point in time, I asked him to take a year and track that data as it relates to the low turnout. He did do that, and then prior to his leave departure earlier this year, he had indicated again that he'd like to submit a decision package for which there was 2 fire service technicians included, and within that his rationale was around the low paid-on-call turnout. So from my perspective and the corporate leadership team's perspective, once we had the data that supported it for some period of time, it was fully endorsed, the proposed decision package they're going forward to council and to you now through this information session. So without any other further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Assistant Chief Larsson, who's going to do the balance of the presentation, and I'm sure you'll find the information helpful and useful. Thank you.
All right, tonight's agenda, I've been asked to speak on a few different subjects. So we're going to be, I'll give you an introduction to our fire service in case you're not familiar with it, some of our resources. We'll talk our current model, we'll talk our current service levels, we're going to talk some challenges that we've been facing, some potential solutions, and then obviously the question period as stated by the Mayor. Our current staffing complement. So we have a Director of Fire Services, which is Chief Jolly. We have 2 Assistant Chiefs, myself in training and Chief Perrie in prevention. We have 2 fire safety technicians, which are our full-time firefighters that work 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. I'll talk much more about them. And we have 29 paid-on-call firefighters. Department budget stats. We'll give you the 2018 numbers. The operating budget this year was $1,472,400. That is an annual cost per household in Pitt Meadows of $149, or broken down, it's 42 cents per day. Pitt Meadows Fire Rescue is a paid-on-call department, which means members respond as an as-needed basis. This is done by the use of a pager that they wear 24/7, and they respond anytime, day or night. Prior to 2010, the department was strictly a volunteer department. Members received a nominal payment once per year in the form of a stipend from the city. This was intended to cover expenses such as gas, clothing, and so forth. The POC system worked exactly the same as the volunteer system did. However, with this model, our members are now compensated an hourly wage for time spent during training and emergency incidents. All of our POCs are extremely dedicated members of our community who contribute a lot of hours. Last year, the average member put in 350 to 400 hours. Every one of our POCs has a career. This is one of the clarity that I want to make right now. This is not their job. They do not work here. They have careers. They do this on top of their jobs, around their jobs, evenings, weekends. Our current model, we've been asked many times what the difference is between us and a career model, and I'd like to explain how it works. A career model is a career primary response. This is truly the ideal response model for a timely, guaranteed response, but it does require a much higher operating budget. Career-based response are career members at the front line. They go out and, if needed, and if there are in the departments, supplemented by a volunteer department or volunteers. Most career departments have minimum 4-man crews at all times, ready to take calls, and this model can be a lot quicker response because staff are at the hall. Our POC model, which is working right now, is POCs are the primary responders, meaning they respond to all the MVAs, all the fires, all the front lines, and they're supplemented by 2 career members, and that's our FSTs. It is a slower response because POCs have to respond to the hall from home. The average response from home to hall is about 3 to 4 minutes. So all of our POCs come from home to the hall, 3 or 4 minutes, and then they respond to the incident from the hall. There is no guaranteed response or numbers of POCs that are going to be on any given call. The POC response model, like ours, are generally used and work well in smaller communities. Pitt Meadows is the last city in the GBRD that continues to operate using the POC primary model. We had 566 emergency calls for service. We had 99 education prevention activities, which were done by our FSTs. These are school tours, hall tours, community events. 702 occupancy inspections performed in all commercial and multifamily buildings. These are all done by Assistant Chief Perrie. As a new commercial development grow, he's not going to be able to keep up with this, so that's something that we have to put on the radar right now. He's sort of at the max of what he can do as far as inspections right now. We also had 250 training sessions provided to firefighters in all areas and responsibilities. Here's our average response times. Our average response time to an emergency incident in an urban area is 8 minutes and 19 seconds. The average response time for reported structure fires is 6 minutes and 3 seconds. And the average response time to all emergency incidents in the rural area is 10 minutes 29 seconds. The response time of 6 minutes and 3 seconds is quite well, again, given that it takes 3 minutes to 4 minutes to get POCs from their house to the hall. So that's really, really good stats out. The other one to look at right now is the average number of personnel for a reported structure fire. The average at any structure fire last year was 14.7 members. Industry standards state that minimally 12 to 16 firefighters are needed to effectively operate a structure fire. So this meets right in those areas. But the vast majority of this training are recruit training due to high turnover and constant intake of new members. We currently have 4 separate groups in various stages of the recruit training program, with a new group starting in January. The recruit training takes about 3 years from start to finish, so you can see how much time that is, just turning over new members all the time. This is very good for Pitt Meadows, but it was not obtained due to our response model or our service levels. It was a reflection of our water supply, our hydrants, our pump capacities, our maintenance of our apparatus, our pre-fire planning, our plan review, dispatch, and the location of the fire station to the businesses. That's how we got that rating. Again, it wasn't due to our response model. But the majority of our years are 550 to 600 calls. These stay pretty stable. And then the red ones are the fires. There's a misconception that we are going to less fire-related incidents than we did 10 years ago, whereas in fact we're going to the same amount. Actually, if 2017 was reflected, we had 66 fire-related incidents, which is the highest number we've had in 12 years. You can see the breakdown between vehicle, grass, or brush fires, home, structure fires, and other. The new clinical response model. This is as we go into medical calls. This is the new response model for the BC Ambulance Service, their coding system. Fire departments across the province are now called to purple, red, and orange, plus ambulance delays over 10 minutes. So that's everything on the left-hand side there. Those are the most serious calls. Pitt Meadows attends all purples, some reds, some oranges, and we do not attend ambulance delays. We'll go into our coding system, which is Alpha through Echo. So Echo calls are the most severe, the most serious classification, Delta the next. So these are your life-threatening critical incidents. Our service levels here differ from our surrounding departments. So this is what we go to. These are the codes we go to. Pitt Meadows Fire Rescue responds to modified Echo and Delta response. There are many Delta and Echo calls the department does not go to. Actually, we do go to all Echo calls. There's a lot of Delta calls we don't go to. The department does not attend any Alpha Bravo calls and very few Charlie. So we go to the most serious where we believe we can make the most difference. So here's a comparison of service levels. In 2015, we had a service review done which compared us to 8 departments around BC, and these were chosen due to the demographics similar to Pitt Meadows. The following service level comparisons with regard to medical response. So you can see what we have is the specific Delta Echo calls, no response with ambulance delays. Central Saanich, Comox, Colwood, Courtney, and Souk were departments here that had POC and career members, about 3 to 5 career members each. They went to Delta and Echo, almost all of them, all the times. And then during the day, there's a few of them that actually went, when they had career staff on, they went to a few more of these where they picked up some Charlie calls as well. Other comparable departments that they did in this survey, just demographics of population, they looked at Esquimalt, Oak Bay, and White Rock. At the time, they went to no call too small, which now would be purple, red, orange, and ambulance delays. These departments, I will point out, all have 21 to 24 career fire department members on. Pitt Meadows medical response. In 2017, there were 499 Delta and Echo medical calls in Pitt Meadows. So of all the 911 calls, there was 499 Delta Echo. Under our current response level, we attended 17 Echo, which was all the Echo calls, 148 Delta, and 45 others, which would be Charlie calls, most likely associated with motor vehicle accidents. But 69% of all Delta calls, 334 of them, were filtered out, and we didn't respond to, just because of the way they were coded. We do have a BC Ambulance Rest and Ready station. Most of you have probably seen it or heard about it. It's a great thing. It's just across the parking lot here in the annex building, the city-owned building. It's there. The Rest and Ready station is located there, and it's a place where ambulance crews go during crossover coverage in Pitt Meadows. The Rest and Ready station will provide faster service to the city core when ambulances are there. But it's important to note that BC Ambulance is a regional service and move from community to community on demand, whereas fire stays in the community as a designated resource. We in no way are trying to replace BC Ambulance service in Pitt Meadows, nor are we competing with them. They are trained to a much higher standard of care and have the ability to transport. We are a resource that supports their system during serious medical emergencies. There are benefits of fire arriving on scene, though. We can assist BC Ambulance in critical life-saving care, we can help ready the patient for transport, and assist in extricating patients out of their homes into the ambulance. In the 50% of calls that we arrive on scene before the BC Ambulance service, we can assess the patient, provide critical response such as CPR, AED, or deadly bleeding. We can give BC Ambulance critical updates, administer treatments such as oxygen, naloxone, glucogel, and monitor vitals until BC Ambulance arrives. Other benefits of firefighters on scene are patient comfort, comfort of family members, reduce anxiety for everybody on scene, as well as we provide scene safety. Things have been changing. Fires have changed, and Pitt Meadows has changed. Over the last 10 years is what we'll sort of look at right now, but one of the first things that I want to show is that fires have changed. These have been changing for many years now. Fires are faster, they are burn faster, they burn hotter, they burn more intense. These changes are due to synthetic materials being used in furnishings, lightweight materials in building materials, increased fuel loads in today's homes. Fires spread much quicker due to the new open concept found in many of the new builds and the renovations. Fires are no longer contained. Because of these changes, we've had to change the way we respond and also the way we train to today's modern fire. Pitt Meadows. For those that have lived here for quite some time, you'll know the changes I'm about to tell you. But the next few slides, we'll go over what wasn't here 10 years ago and what is here now. We'll start with the commercial. The light industrial, the Golden Ears Business Park 1 and 2, approximately 600,000 square feet each. The library with retail stores on Harrison Ford. Meadowtown Mall with over 400,000 square feet of big box retail. Loblaws Warehouse, over 350,000 square feet of dry storage. The Cineplex Movie Theater, the high occupancy building. Osprey Village never existed. South Bonston Community Center never existed. Golden Ears Blueberry Farms, 135,000 square foot processing plant. The list goes on. Multi-residential and residential. Solaris Towers. We have 2 10-story towers with a third one planned for the future. Each one of these towers has 70 residential units. Before these were created in 2008, nothing over 4 stories existed in Pitt Meadows. We now have the Westbrook Retirement Home, 102 units of senior living. South Bonson residential community never existed down below. 300 attached or townhomes with new development currently underway. Cedar Downs, 5 large buildings with 274 units. The Fairways, 2 large developments with 268 units. Dorado, the gated community, Keystone, Origin, Live 42, the list goes on. The traffic in Pitt Meadows. 2 new bridges have been resurrected up there, and one was a replacement, one's brand new. Brought a lot of traffic back into Pitt Meadows. It's now a 6-lane highway. The traffic counts in 2008 were 56,000. In 2013, there were 72,000, and they're an estimated over 80,000 today. That's your daily traffic counts. Expansions. CP Rail expanded their operations. West Coast Express carrying considerably more passengers daily. YPK, or the airport down off of Baines Road, now expanded runway, more hangars, the addition of commercial float plane company. All of these changes over the last 10 years have consumed considerable time in planning and training, as well as the way we respond. With all of these changes this last 10 years, aside from an addition of 2 career members in 2010, we have changed nothing in our fire service model, but we've continued to provide the same service levels. One of our biggest challenges is recruitment and retention. The high turnover is caused by quite a few different factors with our POC members. The time commitment is too high. They've had a change in career that's taken them out of town or just doesn't allow them to do it anymore due to the time. Housing costs in Pitt Meadows are too expensive, so when these young gentlemen and their families want to buy a house, they're forced to move out of Pitt Meadows, out into Maple Ridge or into Mission or further. And the number one reason we're losing them is career departments. They're hiring a lot right now, and we're losing a lot of fully trained, experienced members to other departments. This year already we've lost 9 members. Last year we lost 7. That's 16 members. That's over half of our department. 10 of our POCs that are currently on with us are not fully trained to the 1,000 level, and they have limited response capabilities. That's 42% of our POCs that have less than 3 years of service. As the firefighters in the room know, that's a pretty scary stat. Recruiting is becoming a lot more difficult, not just in Pitt Meadows. I talk with chiefs and the BC training officers all the time. Recruitment is very difficult. We just did a recruitment drive, and it was the lowest recruitment drive we've had in 10 years. Other challenge is time of day response. Low turnout during the early morning hours is one of our biggest challenges. Occasionally we've had 0 POCs respond between the hours of 6 o'clock and 8:30, where we've done multiple repages to try getting people. During the day, if attendance is low, the chiefs have jumped on the trucks just to get enough people to roll out to an MVA or to an alarms ringing. Over 85% of our POC membership leave the community during these hours. And that's the daytime hours. Gone are the days the POCs work in Pitt Meadows and can respond during work hours. They're out in the lower mainland all over the place. A quick stat, January 1st, 2017 to present, there's been 94 calls Monday to Friday between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. with 3 or fewer attendees. Chief Jolly identified, as Mark Roberts was saying, the low daytime attendance over the last year. He identified it to the CAO and the city leadership team. He brought forward the 2019 decision package to add 2 FST positions to allow increased cover during the daytime hours. For many years, our volunteer POC model has worked well in Pitt Meadows. At this time, it is still working, but it will require some additional resources added to address the challenges we are facing that have been identified today and to maintain our current service levels. During budget presentation on December 12th, we will be proposing the addition of 2 additional career fire members. The proposal would be to have them work 4 days on, 4 days off rotation. It would be a proposed work schedule of 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week. Additional coverage. Currently, we have 40 hours covered in 168 hours of a week. With the additional FSTs working and them working this 4-on 4-off pattern, we'll have 77 hours per week covered. And this will have guaranteed response coverage, including the hours we were talking about between 6 a.m. and 8:30. The good thing about having FSTs there every day of the week is it will provide a driver and a truck officer on shift. It takes a while to become a driver, and quite often that's the reason that a response is slowed, is because we're waiting for a driver so we can move an apparatus. It'll also give us a truck officer on shift, somebody with skills and knowledge to be able to respond safely and manage crews on scene. It will also improve the response times during these hours to medical calls, because again, the FSTs go by themselves, and you'll be cutting out that 3 to 4 minutes waiting for a POC to respond from home to the hall. They can also assist with inspections and daytime training, as well as doing all the jobs that I said that they did earlier in the presentation. Other considerations are backfilling with POCs when one of the FSTs is away for vacation. We figure that's about 18 weeks of vacation. That'll allow our POC staff to get in there and help out and gain some much needed skills and knowledge working on shift. We may also have to hire more POCs. A lot of the departments we talked about earlier that were doing more of the medical calls were also 40 plus POCs, where again we're at 29. So we will have to do that. But to do that, we'll have to find some space. As we said, the fire hall is undersized for what we need, but with the new fire hall, we'll be able to hire more POCs and get them active. One of the other things that we'd like to address, we can't go to all Delta and Echo under our current model, but we can go to the ones that make a difference. There's been a couple of calls that have been identified in our community as being very important, those being chest pains and ambulance delays. We've talked to the membership, I've talked to our POC membership, and they believe that, and our union, and they believe that we could pick up the chest pains and the ambulance calls without taking on too much burden. In 2017, the Delta calls, the chest pains were 88. The ambulance delays we're guessing the over 10 minutes were approximately about 50. So we'll just call it 140 for nice, easy numbers. FSTs would take half of those, or sorry, a third of those away, leaving 80. They'd be split between the platoons. I'd take it down to 40. So each platoon would be needing to pick up 40 extra calls a year. So if you break that down per month, it's about 3 or 4 calls a month. So our guys are fully committed to doing this and believe that they can. It would give much nicer service level to the citizens of Pitt Meadows. The cost for the increased service for 2 additional FSTs are $243,000. Cost to backfill with POCs are about $30,000, and the POC to attend the additional medical calls would be about another $30,000. Total cost increase of $303,700. That increase, if you break it down as I did at the beginning of the presentation, is an additional $28 per single family home or $15 per multifamily home annually. The budget, tax implications and funding for these positions will be discussed during business planning on December 12th.
So I'll just on the tax question, I'm just going to ask Mr. Roberts to make a comment. So Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So rest assured that the senior leadership team, the fire department, are going to look at all ways that we can fund this in a manner that represents what you just talked about, where we need to be cognizant of the tax increase. While we do currently have a proposal to council during business planning and later this next week around the funding model around this to phase in those costs to lessen the burden at once. We also believe that there's a high likelihood that we'll be able to somehow fund the fire positions within that proposed 5.75 that you're probably well aware of, at least part or whole. So we're looking at ways to do that. We believe through some of that development that you referred to around new taxation will assist council in doing that, but we don't have finality to that information, but I believe staff are seriously trying to find a way to lessen that impact too.